All right, we are now recording. Everyone, I'm assuming got the chance to read both case studies. We read about Steve Carpenter and I don't even know how to say it, Anderson and Horwitz.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny because my maiden name is actually Anderson, but that's spelled really different. Not what I'm used to. All right, so our first question, so it just kind of has like a bunch of different questions and scenarios that we're going to answer about the case studies and just kind of discuss them. So this one's about the Steve Carpenter case. It says, many of our discussion centers on understand success or making crucial decisions. Today we are trying to account for failure. To begin your group discussion, quickly reconstruct the elements of the cake financial business model. So the first bullet is customer value proportion. So what do you guys think their customer value proportion was for cake?
Yes, for cake, I thought that could solve industry problems, including lack of transparency in performance and benchmarking, and systematic distract of advisor due to perceive a conflict of interest, and consumer difficulties sorting through on overwhelming array of investment choice. I suppose.
I think that's good.
I feel like he didn't really have a roadmap at all of where he was going. Because once he had the product scaled out, I guess like long term he had a vision, but he didn't have stepping stones to get there. That's what I'm trying to say with his prototype.
I feel like he kind of jumped the gun. Like he was just like, all right, this is what I'm wanting to go do. Now I'm just going to go do it. Where I feel like in his hit case, he was fine for a couple years, but then it kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it took him a while to get like stable, I guess. And then I think wasn't it in 2008 like the market kind of just crashed, and I think everyone had a hard time in 2008, because isn't that when he kind of was debating whether to sell the company right then or not?
Yeah, I think it was in 2009.
Oh yeah, but the crash was in 2008, right? Or no?
Right. Yeah, and he was trying to get his second batch of.
He was wanting to get more money before selling. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
2008 crisis.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So the next bullet is go to market plan. So what was his market plan?
Well, I kind of think that his market plan was just pretty much get their name or their product out there as fast as they could. Like was it TechCrunch? They had like, it was going to be a big boost for them, like everyone would know them. And so he like skipped out on like the beta, name escapes, but anyway, the testing of if the customers actually like the product or not. And so I feel like his marketing plan is kind of more focused on the product than customers actually wanting the product, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that one, because he didn't really have any value. I mean, he suspected who his customers were, but he didn't have a way outside of his software to get to his customers.
Yeah, and his software was like super complicated.
Yeah, I think it was more difficult than what he had anticipated.
Yeah.
Trying to access all the broker accounts or all the brokerages.
And when they wanted to go make changes to it, like they were struggling.
Right. It seemed like they couldn't make changes because it was too difficult. By the time they'd made changes, they ran out of funding.
Yeah.
Well, because wasn't he wanting to do like a subscription fee or something like that? Like towards the end?
Right.
He should have done
Yeah,
that at the beginning. Like that's a good way to get a steady income. Like every year you have to renew your subscription. Like that should have been in his planning. I feel like personally, I guess.
Yeah, I think that the goal to market was the website. Yeah.
All right. Hi, Josh. Welcome to the group. We're
How's
just
it
kind of
going?
discussing. We've got kind of some like questions and scenarios for each case we're supposed to discuss. So that's what we've been doing.
Oh, sounds great.
All right. How about the technology and operation strategies?
I think specifically for this case, he wanted to do it in-house because he wanted the control for his management. And I think that caused him, I think that was his downfall, is he didn't outsource developing the software.
I agree. Didn't he also want the information too? Because whoever developed the software would have also had then access to a lot of the information. He wanted to be able to utilize that information to also profit off it later on.
Yes, and the brokerages were going to charge him.
Yeah. Seemed like he took on too much all at once was one of the main things, especially technologically in that aspect. All of a sudden he focused on gaining so much because he thought he could make so much off of so many different ventures at once in one company that he ended up not making enough off of either to support himself.
Right.
Yeah, and also the software was developed according to the three layers: the data aggregation layers, the algorithmic and analytic layer, and the last is the application layer. So the focus on developing the logarithm.
Yeah.
All right. The next bullet point is cash flow formula.
He didn't have one.
Yeah.
He had other people's cash that flowed.
Yeah, that's true.
Didn't have one. Yeah.
Because later in the case study, he talks about that. He said that Cake had not even focused on revenues during his first year. And so he was just getting all the funding, and I think all that funding bogged him down because he tried to grow too fast. He asked for all this funding, he received it, and he was trying to grow way too fast and totally missed the concept of what his product was.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which caused the termination of the 13 of the 20 employees. And that definitely is not good for the company. So,
or the people that he had to let go. That would be good.
He made some assumptions in Exhibit 6, but he didn't reach the goals, right?
I think you're right. I think he did make some assumptions, or was that the other case? I can't remember. What page? Do you know?
Yeah, the 3, right?
Page 3.
Exhibit 3.
Exhibit 3.
Oh, Exhibit 3.
Were those his assumptions, or was that what actually happened?
Yeah, page 16.
I think those are his assumptions.
Okay.
Because he didn't make hardly any profit, right? Until like the very end, where it was like 2%, and then it's like dying down.
Sorry, Morgan, I can't hear you very well. May I ask you to repeat the last sentence, please?
I think that was Chantel.
Oh, sorry. Chantal.
Yeah, no. Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think it's just his assumptions, because the gross margins are positive and he didn't make any revenue until August 2009. So
You're right. So his assumption, that exhibit 3 are his assumptions, because on page 3 of the case, it says, it's in that first paragraph, the bottom sentence, it says, by the year 2010, Carpenter projected 82 million of revenue with 20% from advertising, lead generation, and sponsorships.
Yeah, but he didn't reach the goals, right?
Right. And I think that goes back to the customer value proposition and his product. He couldn't find the value for his customers, so therefore he couldn't find his customers, because those go hand in hand. And if you don't have either of those, you can't really create a stream of revenue aside from investors.
Yeah. Right.
And even at that, he shouldn't have got all the investor funding that he did.
No, you shouldn't have.
All right, should we go to the next question? So it says, after your group has recreated the business model, it says, vote. What cake doomed from the was cake doomed from the beginning, or was this a promising business model? I think he was doomed. I don't feel like there was really a business model in general. Like, I think he just kind of was winging it all together.
So do you think this was a great business idea, but not a great business opportunity?
Yeah, I think the idea of it was smart, and I think the timing of it was too. But I don't think he thought through, like you said, he didn't follow the stepping stones. He kind of just jumped.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. I feel like the one thing is, if he would have properly gone through the right steps in the beginning to go through each individual thing, user interface, that kind of stuff, he would have changed his business model before ever releasing, and then he could have been successful. But as the business model stood, there was no way it was going to be successful the way he introduced it.
Yeah, it was a great idea, but not a great business plan. I think he could develop the idea in another way.
Yeah.
So I with that, because this case really focuses on TechCrunch for a couple paragraphs. Do you think TechCrunch was a wise idea for him to promote his product through, or do you think he should have followed through with his initial thought to do an alpha version, a beta version, and then 1.0 version later?
I definitely think that he should have gone with like the testing. Yeah, he kind of screwed himself over at the beginning, like you guys are saying. Like when he was doing the testing for his product, he was just making sure that everything was running well, that people could use it, but he didn't really like recognize that people weren't really happy with his product. So by the time he got to the TechCrunch, like not going for the beta and I don't know, the other testings to see what the customers were thinking about his product, I think that really hurt him.
Yeah, right. He should have produced a better product instead of using a focus groups. So to invest money and time in the right direction, right?
Yeah, because I had kind of the same thought. The timing was great. to find out that there was 14 million investors and 6% of those felt that they had everything. I did the calculations, and that left 13 million investors still looking for information. And so his revenue stream possibilities annually was $21 billion a year projected. And so his timing was great. But after he found out that his product, the software behind it was too complicated, I think he should have pivoted his business there in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I think we're on the same page.
Okay, let me see what the next question is. I've got too many windows open. There it is. All right. Says next, discuss Steve's approach to the opportunity Tried to understand what, if anything, Steven could have done differently that may have produced a better outcome. I think kind of just talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, at the end, I think it was overcomplicated. He brought in so many intelligent people and went to so many large companies, bringing out a great idea that he neglected to actually address the needs of an average everyday investor. Those were going to be the people that actually brought him in any kind of income in the future. And so he created something that was overly complicated and not suited for the people that were actually going to bring in any form of revenue.
Yeah, I think he could have learned more by building a lighter version of the prototype and observe how investors could use it. He should have spent more time on design the website, because only 3% to 5% of visitors were registering to use cake after lunch. He realized that the product worked as promised in terms of linking with brokers, but its visual design was unappealing.
All right, to keep continuing on with this, it gives me a few bullet points, and it says, on page 3, Steven says, in retrospect, I'm not sure that these earlier focus groups were very helpful. They validated our high-level concept, but we did not seek feedback on a specific product. I've learned that focus groups for technical products can be unreliable because people can't always say what they want until they can actually see it and play around with it. We would have learned more by building a lightweight product and watch how investors used it. We also didn't get much sense of user segmentation from our earlier focus groups. Later, we learned that that there are important but subtle differences between active investors who track their portfolios daily and mainstreamer investors who pay less attention. So what did you guys kind of get from that? I think Mike kind of mentioned that, where he was saying how they should have done a cheaper prototype, or not cheaper, but like a less complicated prototype for the to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, because the product was technically new, so people weren't able to say what they wanted until they could actually see the product. I think he could have learned more by building a lighter version of the prototype.
Did he even have a prototype?
Yeah, I think he did. It was his product. It was his prototype, isn't it?
It was like a website, wasn't it? Or something?
It felt like he kind of more or less just had concepts and then kind of rolled out the whole thing at once.
The website, yeah.
Well, I can't remember if it was this case study or not. It's what happens when you read 6 case studies a week. But it's something about how the investors wouldn't invest until they saw an actual product or something like that. And like I said, it might not have been this case. I can't remember. But I think it is important to have something, especially when you're asking for money to invest in a product or a company or whatever it is. Like, they need to know what they're investing in. They're not just going to go and give you millions of dollars to start up this company that they don't know anything about. All right, and then another bullet point says, on page 10, Stephen says, there's no way you could have learned this up front through interviews or focus groups. There were a lot of precedent points to a strong social component, including investment clubs and active communities on sites like Raging Bull. Any comments on that one?
I think you can learn it through. I think you can learn this up front through interviews and focus groups.
Especially if you have like a lightweight prototype or whatever.
Yeah, because starting a business, all it is a hypothesis. And you're testing that prototype against your hypothesis, and you make pivots to your business based on the feedback that you've received from your prototype. So I think Stephen's wrong there because of that.
I will probably start with focus group as Carpenter to try to identify market segmentation. I agree.
Yeah.
But I can also see where, you're starting a business and you've wanted to for a long time, that you just don't do your research. And so he could also be true there.
Yeah. Well, I feel like in the situation for him, I think it would have been possible to know that all three of his main ideas, the social, the connecting to the main things, as well as having the top performers, all those concepts all at once. There's no way you can really gauge all three of those concepts, where I feel like if he would have done each individual concept and then built from whichever one he got the most information and the most response out of, he could have then maybe added on features and grown his business from a singular concept instead of trying to attack it at three different areas. So I don't think you can focus group that much information and create a whole product that has never existed like that. No one would understand the concept because no one's ever seen the concept. It's just in his brain.
Yeah, this is why he used focus groups and created the RT user persona.
So do you think maybe that's a downfall of an entrepreneur, is thinking too big?
I think that was his biggest downfall. I think he had such a grand idea and he fell in love with it, and he was not able to shrink it down and to pivot in the proper directions. It was a good idea. I mean, he did have a good idea, but at the end of the day, doesn't mean the rest of us were ready for it yet. And so it doesn't matter how good of an idea you have. If people don't like it, you're not going to make any money off of it. Or if people aren't interested in it yet, I should say.
Fair enough. Because it does say in the case that he had, and I can't remember the exact number, what was it, 10 million users go to the website after TechCrunch?
He had 10 million, but his issue was that it wasn't built enough to pull and keep that 10 million. They each came there potentially for different reasons and didn't find any one thing that kept them there. I think that was the issue. I think the concept was exciting, but I think when they showed up, they couldn't find a reason to stay. And I think that's basically because it was too convoluted with information. Whereas maybe he would have only pulled in 5 million, but if he'd been focused and that 5 million people were looking for the one thing he was providing, then he probably would have kept higher percentage of people and they would have become more active users on his website.
Yeah, I think at the end, and he didn't have enough resources to keep going.
All right.
I think he would have grown over time. But
yeah.
The idea was good.
You guys see where it says we're running out of time on our meeting? Casey?
Oh, yeah. It's supposed to be a 40-minute meeting. You can restart these
Okay.
and just do it over again if you need to.
So how do I do that?
I think you just create a new link and we'll all join.
All right. Do you want me to create a new link right now and send it? Well, actually, let's answer the last question for this case, and then I'll start a different one for the next case. That work?
Yeah, sounds good.
As a group, identify the main reason for Cake's failure. And I think we've kind of discussed them throughout this discussion, but kind of what are the main reasons? I think we kind of mentioned how he got lots of investors, but he didn't really have his product or company like really under control at that point and wasn't really focused about like creating revenue. And so kind of the investors were just throwing money at him.
He also didn't have the right target market. Like I think they said like the majority of, maybe not, maybe that's a different case. I don't know. Was it the majority of the people who actually ended up using it were women? And then
they were men in this case because the men didn't socialize. Yeah.
Okay.
But you can keep going with your thought process there. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I lost my thought process.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So, okay. Anyway, if I remember, I'll pipe back in.
All right, any last comments before we run out of time? Revolving this case.
I guess we're good.
All right, okay, I'm gonna end this then.